Welcome to Piano Inspires podcast, celebrating pianists, teachers, and innovators as they share their inspiring stories about the transformative power of music.
Welcome to the Piano Inspires podcast. My name is Andrea McAlister, and I'm the Director of Digital Programming for the Francis Clark Center. And I'm so very pleased to be joined today by Alvin Chow and Angela Cheng. Consistently praised for her brilliant technique, tonal beauty, and superb musicianship, Canadian pianist Angela Cheng is one of her country's most superb national treasures. As a recitalist, soloist, and chamber musician, she has performed extensively across Canada and the United States, as well as in Europe, Asia, and Australia. Cheng was awarded the gold medal at the Arthur Rubinstein International Piano Masters Competition and was the first Canadian to win the prestigious Montreal International Piano Competition. She is currently on the artist faculty of the Oberlin Conservatory of Music. And Alvin Chow has appeared throughout North America and in Asia as an orchestral soloist and recitalist. In addition, he has performed extensively in duo piano recitals with his wife, Angela Cheng, and his twin brother, Alan. Professor Chow was the first Fulbright College visiting artist in piano at the University of Arkansas. He later taught at the University of Colorado at Boulder. Since 1999, he has been a member of the artist faculty at Oberlin Conservatory of Music, where he is currently chair of the piano department. Welcome, Angela and Alvin.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's so rare that we get to sit down with two amazing pianists, so it is quite an honor to be here with you today. Let's start back at the very beginning and how you came to music, how you engaged with it as you were a child and grew up to love it. So I'd like to start with you, Angela.
Okay. Well, my mother's side of the family actually was deeply involved in classical music. And so my grandfather had spent a little time in San Francisco area when he was a teenager, fell in love with classical music, went back to China and built violin factory, which still exists today. And so all 9 of his children and all the grandchildren were assigned either the piano or the violin. So when I was growing up, all my cousins, all my aunts and uncles were either a pianist or a violinist. Either they play in an orchestra or they're piano teachers, with a few exceptions. One was a singer. But, classical music, Western music was part of our family. And family gatherings, instead of playing games, we would see, I would have races with my cousins to see who can play the fastest scale. That would be our game. And so I've always wanted to be a violinist. I don't know how I got assigned the piano, but I did. But for years, I was like, I could never beat my cousins because they played the violin. They could play faster scales. But that's how it all started with me.
That is an incredible story.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how it was just the norm.
Right.
It was just what everyone
did. Yeah, exactly.
Instead of playing games.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that was back in Hong Kong. And so when we moved to Canada when I was 11, I remember it was such a culture shock, not knowing the language and doing very badly in school, except for in the subject of mathematics. I was failing everything when I was really used to being a good student. I remember asking my mother, I said, I want to keep playing the piano. And she looked at me, she said, well, there are no more aunts here to study with. I was like, but I really, really feel sad and I need the piano. And so she, even though we didn't have any money, she managed through another cousin who found me a piano teacher in Edmonton, who really took me under her wing and gave me a way to speak and to express myself when I couldn't do it in words. And I'm just very grateful for just having met her, for having her taking such incredible care of me through all my kind of developmental years. Yeah, and that's how it continued. Part of me wondered if I had stayed in Hong Kong, what would have happened? And then, or if my mother, who had 2 brothers in the San Francisco area, had immigrated to the US, what would have happened? I think a lot of things would have been different in my life. So much of I would say the majority part of my education was paid for by the Canadian government, all of my schooling in New York and the US, all the competitions I did overseas were all paid by Canadian grants. And because we couldn't afford it. And without that kind of help, that kind of like support and, kind of like somebody who believes in you, I don't know what would have happened if we had moved to, California. So just so many ifs, what if, I've just been very, very lucky all my life. I'm very, very grateful to my mother for leaving Hong Kong to give my sister and me a better chance of a better life in the future.
Wow, what a journey.
I know.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
it lucky or is it wonderful support?
I think it's both. I mean, even if we had moved to, let's say, to Toronto, of course the Canadian government is also there, but it's a much bigger city. There's too many other people. Edmonton was very small when we moved there. And, to have met the right teacher who then helped me not only get provincial support for my lessons, she helped me find a piano because I had no instrument to practice on for 2.5 years. And then, when I was 14, I was loaned a piano from a local dealer who my teacher had talked to and said, "This is an incredibly talented girl. She needs a piano to practice." And I remember this little upright, mahogany, shiny. It was about this tall, not more than, 2.5 feet, and had the most gorgeous bell-like sound. I treasured it. And, it wasn't a gift. It was a loan. So he told me, the dealer, that when you saved enough money, you can buy your own. You'll have to give it back. And I remember buying my first piano at 17, my Yamaha little baby grand, which I still have today. And it was unbelievable community support, but also being lucky to be at the right place at the right time throughout my life, that I am forever grateful, to all the people that has helped me along the way, especially my we'll
put a pin in that and come back to your teachers. But Alvin, I know your story is a little different.
It's quite different because, as you mentioned before, I have a twin brother who's also a pianist, and we're the first musicians in our family from as far back as we can figure out, generations. And our parents were typical Chinese immigrants at that time. They just wanted their children to experience things they'd never had. And so my mother especially loved music and thought that we should have some kind of training. In the back of her mind, I think she was thinking, well, it'll help them in school. So, just that learning process increases all your brain cells and everything. So that was really her motivation. But she loved music and she loved hearing us practice. And so when we were 5, we started piano lessons. And I think that in our case, we very similar to Angela, we had great teachers. We had basically 2 teachers during our formative years before we went to college. And each of them was just the right person at the right time. They knew exactly what to do with us and what we were capable of. I think the most important thing, they knew how to motivate us, inspire us to do the work that we were doing. We actually liked practicing. I don't know. I don't have that many students who like to practice as much as I think I did when I was that age. And I really think it's because my teachers knew exactly what to say or what kind of pieces to give us that just motivated us to be better and better. But that was our background. We were the only musical children among most of our family, cousins and everything. But, even when I was thinking about being a musician at the very end of high school and thinking about what we were going to do in college, and both of our parents said, "What? we just wanted you to play piano. We don't necessarily want you to make a living out of this. How do you do that?" Typical fears of a family that was looking for economic security for their children. And so they were a little resistant, but they gave in after a while and said, "Well, it seems to be what you want to do. It's what makes you happy. Then we're just going to let you do that." So they continued to support us in our endeavor. So Yeah, a little bit different in that music wasn't the obvious choice like it was in Angela's case. But we ended up meeting each other while we were in school, and that was also lucky and fortuitous and being in the right place at the right time. So, music has done a lot for us. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, it seems like you both had a lot of being in the right place at the right time and having the right teacher at the right time.
Yeah.
We've always said, or I've always thought that any of the teachers that I had, if I had them in some different sequence, it might not have come out the exact way that where I am now. And there was just something about that person being the right person at that time, at that place in my life. And it just made the next step possible. We've talked about this a lot. We feel a lot of connection in that way too. Just being with the right person at the right time was so important for us.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that having a twin brother who was also very interested in piano, I mean, here your parents said, we just wanted you to learn to play piano, and then both of their sons move on to become pianists.
Yeah.
Was that motivating for you as well?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I think it was. We were really competitive with each other. We still are. Healthily, though, I think, because we can still talk to each other and enjoy each other's company. But I think that was a big part of it. We really, he's learning that piece, or he's practicing. I have to practice to keep up, and vice versa. The only one thing that we've pretty much done our whole life is we've never played the same repertoire. And that's something that our teachers sort of instilled in the very beginning. And I think that was, and we're blessed because we have such a huge repertoire. We can do this. We don't have to worry about, now I have nothing else to play.
Right, good thing you were trombonists, right?
Well, apologies to any trombonists out there, but yeah, that is true. We've just have this incredible repertoire so that we could, kind of keep our separate spaces. And I think part of that also is our personalities are a little bit different, and so we're drawn to different kinds of repertoire. Maybe that helps a little bit, but there was never. I don't think it was always a healthy competition if there was one. Yeah.
So, at what point did the two of you meet? Because I know this happened somewhere along your college journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we met. Before we met again in Juilliard.
Yeah.
1 year? Was it just 1 year? Yeah.
So prior, I was just on my way to Juilliard, having graduated from the University of Maryland with Nalita True. And Angela was a contestant in the Capel competition that was on the campus of the University of Maryland. So someone said, you must meet Angela Cheng. She's Chinese. The reason that sounds odd today, but in our time, there were so few Chinese in the performing arts.
Partly because of the Cultural Revolution.
Mm-hmm. There were lots of Japanese and Korean students in the United States, but there were no mainland Chinese. A few from Hong Kong, but mostly American-born Chinese or Canadian Chinese. So we were introduced to each other just very briefly. And then the next year, I went to Juilliard. She followed a year later. And we happened to see each other in the lobby at Juilliard. And I was manning a desk for students who were looking for housing. And so she came up because she needed a place. And so we recognized each other. We knew where we'd met before. And so that was the beginning. And we also happened to be studying with the same teacher, Sasha Gordon-Nitsky. So that also was a kind of a great pull. We were going to be studio mates. And we became fast friends. At that time at Juilliard, I can count on one hand, I think, the number of Chinese students in the piano department. And
it's shocking, isn't it? If you think
now
about it.
When you think about it. But we would do, and Juilliard in those days was closed on Sundays. You couldn't practice.
Yes,
I
think that's a wonderful policy.
I think we need to go back to that.
I know.
So we were forced to find something else to do on Sundays. So the five of us would get together. We'd go to Chinatown and we'd have a meal together, lunch usually, and then we'd buy groceries and then we'd cook a Sunday meal. and we would just spend the time with each other. And so that's another way that we got to know each other, because of the enforced time away from the piano. And so those were
so healthy.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Except one semester I did have lessons on Monday morning. And I thought, I really wish I had a Sunday to get ready for that. But otherwise, I thought it was a great
Can
great
you
thing.
imagine if we did that today?
No,
we
I
just
can't.
close the conservatory every Sunday.
Can you imagine? I mean, the demonstration that will happen.
Oh my goodness. They would find other ways.
I
They
know.
would seek out other pianos.
Right.
Especially if they had Monday lessons.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. So that you became studio mates,
Mhm.
and was that you went on to Indiana after that?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I finished my master's at Juilliard, and then began the doctorate at Indiana University with Menahem Pressler. And we weren't dating at the time. We were just good friends. And so she came to visit us at, I say us because Alan was also at Indiana. And she sat in on a lesson that I had. I was playing Schubert, Wanderer Fantasy. And she came out of that lesson. She said, I have to study with this man. She was just blown away. So she decided to come to Indiana for the summer session, just as a summer student. And again, she told me after a couple lessons, she said, I have to transfer. So she had actually just finished her bachelor's at Juilliard, and she was supposed to go back and start the master's. So she asked Mr. Pressler, and this is in August. So
to start at the end of August. It was like
That's
crazy. Oh, yeah.
and he bent all kinds of rules, and she was admitted into the program that fall, and she began studying with him. And we spent the next 7 years working with him.
Yeah.
So what was it about Pressler?
Well, I loved every second. Those 7 years were the happiest. And I really think they were the happiest years of my life. I mean, he was just so inspiring. I mean, what he talked about, he just never held back. He just gave everything to you that he knew. He was willing to share everything. English was not his first language, yet his vocabulary just would convey these images and imagery and sound, things that inspire you to search and create. And, some people felt he was too critical, but I was starving. I wanted as much criticism, as much help. I didn't need someone to tell me, you're good, because I knew I wasn't. I needed someone to tell me, this needs to be fixed. This is not good. And it just inspired me to go back to the practice room and just keep working. I mean, I was on such a musical high. I would come out of the lessons. I thought I could smell flowers in the lesson. I mean, all of a sudden it was like, it's spring again. And I'd be skipping down the hallway, and people thought I was so strange. But he really had this amazing way of making the music come alive, and how it touches him, and how I certainly understood what he was saying, and how I wanted to share what he thought the composer had in mind the next time I perform it for my audiences. And so I loved it. I mean, every single one of those lessons were a treasure to me. All of his handwritings in my score it's like a Bible to me. I mean, I will treasure them forever. And I feel so grateful to have that kind of gift that he gave me, that I'm now willing to share with my students. And so, I mean, he really changed my life. I was ready to pack everything up and just go home and do something else. Maybe I think I would have done that. But he really brought life back and changed the way we hear and think about music.
He used to say that he talked about feeling the music so strongly. And he said, if you don't feel it, it's like you have calluses on your heart. You cannot develop that kind of, oh, it's the norm, whatever that is. It always has to be fresh. It always has to be something that you're experiencing for the first time. And so that kind of inspiration was all the time in his teaching. I remember one time we were working on the same piece. I think it's the only time we worked on the same piece at the same time. And it was L'Île Joyeuse of Debussy. And we compared our scores, our notes, after these lessons. And I'd look at her score and I'd say, well, he didn't tell me to do that. And she'd look at my score and, well, he didn't tell me to do this. And we realized that he's not teaching a formula. We would come in with some kind of a thought, an idea about how the piece should go, and he was reacting to it. This doesn't work. If it was working, he went with it and then tried to get you to finish that thought or to develop that thought. So it wasn't a cookie cutter approach to how a piece should be played. Really inspiring, because for us, and then we felt free to be ourselves, but then we did feel like we were getting enough guidance, that's for sure. He always gave us guidance, but it was a kind of a neat lesson in how to approach music. So, if you're teaching a Waldstein sonata for the 250th time, it's sort of a different experience, because the person who's playing for you is different. The way I respond to them as a teacher, as a listener, it's just going to have to change with every student that comes in. There are certain basic things, of course, that we have to meet. But when they're on a particular path and it's viable and it's valid according to the score and our beliefs of what that style is, you just kind of go with it and then develop it into that way. So I think that was a huge lesson that we learned from him.
So, it's not, of course, there are plans that when we practice, but it's always reacting and creating. Like every venue that you play at, every time there's a new piano, and just kind of being creative with understanding and knowledge of what is stylistically appropriate, what are the sound boundaries for that composer, that period. And so having respect for that, but yet not just doing, this much up to this decibel of loudness, but to actually inspire and invoke feelings that the composer had left for us through these black dots, and transferring them, filtering through you what they mean, and then creating by reacting to what you're listening to. So I think it's wonderful, because, how boring if we have to play the same way each time. And we've had different experiences in our own lives. And then we look at a piece of music through different glasses, different lenses. And so, having to teach, to express what I feel the music is about, it's also really helpful in my own practicing, my own performing. So I think we've been lucky that way, that we can do both. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he was for sure this role model for us, because he was so active performing, and yet he had 20 students, and he gave everything to us. There were no assistants. He gave all the lessons himself, and he was playing 300 concerts a year.
It seemed like he did it. He was gone a lot.
He was gone a lot, but yet all the lessons were there. He worked so hard. We tried our best. I remember he laughed at me when I told him I worked part-time, and he says, 8 students? You have tons of time. And I was like, no, I don't. I have 2 children. And he says, and I wanted to say, but I didn't. And I said, I didn't have a wife that does all the cooking, all the cleaning. But
I did something.
I know, no. You're a partner. He had somebody who did everything for him.
That's right.
And that was their partnership. And so, he just laughed. He said, 8 students, that's nothing. Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, he laughed. He thought that was hilarious. Anyways, yeah.
Different time.
Yeah. That's right. Different times.
I love what you said about him really teaching the student in front of him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that cookie cutter.
Right.
And isn't the whole purpose of being a musician is to be a creator, not just a reproducer
Right.
of another person's intentions.
Exactly.
And it seems like he gave you a lot of a solid foundation of what the piece should sound like, but then a lot of leeway to create the piece.
That's right.
That really touches people. Like you said, you have callus
Yeah.
in your heart. It touches people.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Having heard you play many times, I can say that it touches people.
Oh,
and so
thank you.
that message is really coming through both of you when you perform and when you teach. I see so many of your students who, talk to me about their lessons with you and observe your teaching and the ideas that they gain from watching you teach, not just as a student, but a third party observer, because they do have to come observe your lessons. It's so inspiring to me that they're able to understand what you're doing, all of this, really student-centered focus, working with the person in front of you. And that's going to make it into that next generation
Exactly.
of musicians.
Yeah.
So speaking of your students, how are you helping your students embrace this idea of being a creator? I find that it's becoming a little harder for students to find their own voices. And certainly not in all cases, but it seems that, we don't close the conservatory on Sundays. We're very driven. We're a driven generation, and I'm seeing the generations after us have this mindset. How do you help them embrace this?
Well, I had 4 years with Nalita True as an undergraduate. And one of the things that I learned from her so much was that in a lesson, there were more questions asked of me than there was an actual teaching. She always asked, what are you looking for? What kind of sound are you trying to make? Or what's the character of this? It was just, and then of course there's, at least when I first started studying with her, there was just complete silence because I was waiting for her to tell me. And then I realized that after a while, the silence was very long because she wasn't going to say anything to me, and that she was trying to lead me to verbalize what I was looking for. I know it isn't counterintuitive. I think that what I try to do is ask leading questions to help the student try to find the answers. And so actually, we've heard it several times this morning about how you can approach a piece of music and you see what looks to be quite static because there are notes and rests and dynamic markings. But both Robert McDonald and Doug Humphreys talked about how limitless the possibilities are, even with these finite number of markings on the page. And so that's what I think is the fascinating part. You can take what looks to be a concrete piece of material, and then you can be pliable within that foundation. If you can do that, then I think that you show your student where the boundaries are, but then you show all the room within the boundaries that they can work, and then it becomes their own, if you want to say it that way. I still, as my older daughter, she was taking lessons with us, and she turned to me one day, and this is like right before she quit lessons, but she said, Daddy, I know why you wanted to be a teacher. And I said, oh, why is that? And he said, because you like to tell people what to do. And then I thought, well, okay, that's probably not the best example I was trying to give her. But I do think that there is, we have to give guidance. That's our purpose as well. But within there, I'm often telling you have a choice. You can do this, you can do that. We could do this. That's your decision. But some of these other things I probably wouldn't do because of what I see on the score. But, I think that they're learning that they have the freedom. And as Nalita True was very important, she said, you have the means. Maybe you don't know it, but you have the means and you can figure this out for yourself. So she's placed a lot of responsibility on me. I still remember, and I'll let Angela talk, but I still remember bringing in a partita. She had signed the second partita of Bach for me. And the first thing, before I had a chance to play, she said, can you tell me about the dances? And I said, what about them? She just closed the book and she said, go look it up. She said, come back next week. And she said, I want you to look in a book. It was the interpretation of Bach's work by Erwin Botke. She gave me the source material. She gave me the means to do it. And she said, go. You just can't recite notes. It's just not possible. You have to understand what the dance is like. It's the best lesson on any Bach work that I've ever had. Just that I should be able to come up with some ideas just based on what those dances should feel like. So that's the kind of influence I had.
Well, I agree with everything that you said. I mean, I guess what I think it's like to kind of add to what you've already said about how to help a student find their own voice is I think I try to, and I hope I do it. I try to instill to them what a privilege it is that we get to do this, and that how we must be responsible for what's left with us, the scores, what Liszt had written down, what Mozart has written down, what Ravel has written down, that how we must treat this material with great respect. And through that, you will be blessed the experiences of learning it and understanding and then creating. I mean, we have I only teach students at our conservatory. I don't have young students. I don't have older students. I just have the undergraduate students. I think it's important for them because they're still fairly young. They're gifted and talented, but they are still new at this kind of discovery. They need to know my point of view. So I don't offer as many choices as you may do in your studio.
I know that.
I tell them exactly, this is the way I look at it. I also, in the same sentence, tell them, this is not the only way, but this is the way that I see it, and I tell them why. By showing them why I came to this conclusion based on what's on the page. And then I said, there are other ways of doing it. If you check out 10 recordings, there may be 3 or 4 very different interpretations, depending on what kind of work it is. I'm not saying they are wrong, and I'm not saying I will stay with this kind of interpretation for the rest of my life. You listen to I listen to an old recording, I'll say, well, that was really dumb. Why did I do that? And I was completely convinced back then. So, but I do feel that students that are between 18 and 22 need to know what I think, and then why. And then they can come to their own conclusions by looking at the score. And very often, more than once or twice, I would say, you have a very good point. I may have to rethink that, And that's the great thing about being a teacher. I learn from my students as well. But yeah, I try to instill to them how lucky we are. We're blessed with great repertoire. We have one of the best instruments. We don't need anybody else. We can play by ourselves. The possibilities are limitless, but at the same time, we have a responsibility. We need to make sure we respect what's there, and from there, then you can fly and be creative. But yeah, I think that's what Mr. Pressler taught me, how to realize what a great gift this is. Yeah, to be able to do this. Mm. Yeah.
Do you think, you were saying you listen to old recordings and think, why did I do that? Do you think it's also life experience?
Absolutely.
When, we're teaching at Oberlin mostly 18 to 22-year-olds, we'll say, because they're undergraduate students.
Right.
Where they are in life now is much
different
than how they're going to be living their lives and seeing the world in another 20 years.
Exactly.
So maybe that wasn't a good idea or a good interpretation of where you were.
Exactly. I think that's exactly what it is. You're absolutely right. That's why when you come back to a piece, let's say you worked on it as an undergraduate and then you've put it away, and then now 15 years later you replay it, or maybe 25 years later you're replaying it. And then, of course, it's a reflection of what you've gone through personally, and also what other works of that composer you've studied since, or what other works of that era that you've studied and know the influences. So all of that comes into the picture as you reinterpret from ground zero to look at the score again, think, oh, that's what that meant. I was wrong. And that's okay. And that's the great thing. There is no right or wrong, really. There are just many ways of looking at this incredible work of art that was inspired by someone else up there. And how wonderful to be able to live it again and to share it. So,
she lives what she preaches. She really does, because I hear her practice every night after dinner, 2 or 3 hours every night without fail. And I hear
while he's on the computer writing us 1,000 emails.
That's right. But I hear her this past month. She's been coming back to the Chopin B minor sonata, which is something she hasn't played in
since kids.
Yes, since kids. So we won't say exactly how, but it's been decades. Yes, many life experiences. And I'm hearing her practice, and it's not just trying to get it back in her hands and trying to remember what it was like. She's still experimenting. She's still trying to figure out things. And I hear her going over the same phrase, and in my mind, I'm saying, that's good. That's good enough. But she is working with timing. She's working with sound, with everything that we would do. But it's not just the same old, oh, that's how I used to do it, and that's how I'm going to do it. It's just, it's a new person, basically, trying to figure out this piece again. So she really does practice what she preaches in that way.
I try to.
That sounds like you're doing a very good job. Somewhat of an offshoot of this conversation, but very much related. Where does a musician fit in the world today? I know this is a really big question, but everything we've been talking about kind of points us in this direction, touching people with the music that we play, and being so lucky and to be able to communicate this music with an audience and with a community. How does the musician affect the community, affect society on a larger scale? So many talk about, well, nobody listens to classical music, or the concerts, orchestra halls are not being filled as they once were. What is our responsibility as musicians?
Gosh, I think it is important for us to, every time we step on that stage, that we give it not just, a good enough, but our very, very best understanding and effort. And that we somehow, that whoever is there listening to you is going to say, I want to have more. Whether it's through, if you're comfortable speaking, fabulous, do it. To reach an audience, to explain, let them guide them through your playing, how it can transform, how it can touch our soul, how it feeds our soul, how that there is hope despite all this sadness. There is something divine, something unbelievably comforting that is for centuries and will continue to be there if you allow yourself to be open to it. So I'm hoping that, I wish I don't play wrong notes. I do. But I hope that through the concerts that I do play, through the teaching that I do, that I can tell them that there's something miraculous, something beautiful, something our minds and our souls can transcend to another level, to dream of something that is better, that is wonderful. And it is sad to go out and see audiences that are diminishing, especially since the pandemic. Everybody's gotten used to, they can listen to it online rather than being there in person. But there's still something very exciting about being in a live concert, because basically music is a conversation. We're talking. We are translating what the composer had in mind. We are speaking in words. We're reacting. And to do that through a recording, okay, that's just one conversation. To hear that same one over and over again is not as beautiful as experiencing it in person. And whether it's perfect or not perfect, but just to be able to watch that development, that creativity, that process. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And so I think, unlike my husband, who's perfect, I hated to practice as a young person. Only in the last, would you say 10, 15 years?
Maybe 20.
Maybe 20. Time flies.
Yeah.
I have learned to love it. I think I love it more than performing. I love just being in the room and me and the score, just me and the score, and trying to find ways of creating what they had left for us 200 years ago. I don't necessarily need that concert. I need the daily practice. It's that puts me, for myself, a feeling of what this life is about. Through the pandemic, there were no concerts, there were no deadlines. I needed it. I didn't need the deadlines. I needed to be at the piano a couple hours a day, 2-3 hours.
Every day.
Yeah. Even though, chaos was everywhere. But that was not chaotic. That was beautiful. That was inspirational. That was something amazing. And
But I think from a practical standpoint too, when we're working with our students, they're young, they're at the beginning really of their life, deciding what they're going to do with it and how music is going to fit into it. The first thing I think is music is a little bit selfish, because I love the feeling that I get when I hear music and when I play music and when I teach the music. So I'm going to do that for me. So I'll be selfish first. But at the same time, there are so many ways of sharing that. So it doesn't have to be. And that's why we have well-rounded educations. We can have piano pedagogy. We have piano technology. We have even a recording degree now at Oberlin. So there's so many ways of somehow keeping music aware, being a part of your life. I have a student now who's interested in arts management, and I think, wouldn't that be great if we actually had musicians who were managing the careers of young artists continuing on in the future, that they know the rep, that they know how to sell their particular artist or guide them in a way. This is what suits you. Maybe you should explore that kind of a thing. So there are so many ways. I have a student now who plays piano in an orchestra in China, and he just loves that. And then he gets to play chamber music with all the principal players in the orchestra. So it's not just about being a performer, but finding avenues that you can share that musical life with. Our daughter who quit piano our older daughter who quit piano when she was, 4?
Not that, 13.
13 or something.
It was dying for years.
But then, we had a conversation, and she a couple of months ago, and she said, "Oh, and I went to hear the symphony last night," and I went, "Whoa, that's great! You actually bought a ticket to hear an orchestra." And she, even though that's not her life, she told us right away. She's a doctor. Maybe she can afford the ticket, but she was just wanted to have that. And so, maybe our students won't always be the providers, but they'll be the consumers of music, and they'll show their appreciation in that way. But that's sort of where I see our part, is just keeping alive that love for the music, that creative spark, and that it will inspire them to go to the next step, whatever that step may be for them.
Yes. And I have experienced this many times with myself and now my children, who also go to the instrument because it's a need. It's therapy. It is their meditation. And whatever emotion they're feeling, and I'm speaking specifically about my teenage children, whatever that big emotion is, they go to they go to music.
That's right.
That's neat.
To help them through it.
Yeah.
And so that's beautiful that you both do that, and that you are sharing that with so many others. Well, it has been an absolute joy.
Thank you.
I could talk to you for another few hours, but I know we need to let you go. We always end our podcast, because this is the Piano Inspires podcast, with fill in the blank Piano Inspires. And I know we've talked about this a lot, but just in a word or two, Piano Inspires.
Go ahead. Well, you can go, and I will go.
Oh, okay. I would say piano inspires me to share. Share my love of music, share what I know about music, share my concern for the student who's playing that music. I think that's a big part of it as well. So sharing, I think, I've had a great life. I've been very lucky. And so if I can share that joy with my students, and they can feel that, and I think then they'll want to try to duplicate it. So that's what I'd say.
Well, I think for me, I mean, I agree with that too. But maybe for me, piano inspires me to dream. To dream and be hopeful for a better life. Not that my life is bad, but sometimes it can be kind of gloomy with the political climate. So it helps me, it inspires me to dream and be hopeful for a better life.
Well, that is beautifully said. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure this has touched many lives beyond your current studio and of your students. And thank you for doing what you do and touching so many lives.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Yes.
The Francis Clark Center is a not-for-profit educational organization that serves the advancement of piano teaching, learning, and performing. Divisions include Piano Magazine, Piano Inspires Kids, Journal for Piano Research, National Conference on Keyboard Pedagogy, the New School for Music Study, Piano Education Press, International Online Teacher Education, and Piano Inspires Online Community Hub. Please visit us at pianoinspires.com to learn more about our impactful work and inspiring community.